just like riding a bike, Timothy. You know?
Yeah. I mean, we'll just roll with it.
All right.
Have a...
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, it is just me as far as hosts go. Normally, you would have somebody here by the name of Benjamin B., but he decided to go on vacation this week, so he is not with us. But to my right, or possibly your left, we do have Timothy. How you doing, Tim?
Doing good. Happy to be here.
Good. First things first, thank you for tuning into the podcast. Thank you for, listening, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music. We're on all of those. And also, thank you for watching on YouTube. It does bring us joy when people are, in fact, watching the video portion of this. So if you have not, did I say listen to the video portion?
Possibly.
I meant watch the video portion of this. If you haven't done that, just go to YouTube, Real Recovery Talk, watch a couple of them. If you like them, great. Leave us a comment, something. And in the end, if you would like to reach out to either myself or Ben, you can always email us, tom@realrecoverytalk.com and ben@realrecoverytalk.com. And we're going to have a conversation with you about your specific situation, whether it be for yourself or a loved one, and see if we can help in any capacity. So, all right, let's just get right into it. Tim, appreciate you coming on. I kind of know what direction we're going to, and we discussed a little bit before starting to record. So why don't we just open with introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your upbringing and your drinking habits, kind of when they started and how they amplified, and then we'll just take it from there.
Okay. So as you know, my name is Timothy. I'm originally from California, just moved down here to Florida to pursue more treatment. My upbringing was good. I wouldn't say that it was neglectful or abusive in any kind of type of way. I was raised well. Maybe too well, spoiled, if you will. But my drinking really, well, I guess I should back up and say that just like the way I was living, just lifestyle-wise, I was kind of like growing up a little bit self-centered, just habits as when I was younger and such. And then as I got older, that translated to, my brother introducing me to marijuana about midway through high school, and that was kind of like the aha moment, like I have a solution. And then that progressed further into, me getting into alcohol, kind of waiting for my parents to go to bed and then sneaking into the liquor cabinet and then building that habit that way. And once it really started becoming an issue was probably about my early 20s, I would say. Just when, like in college and, it was kind of like the party scene a bit. I remember, well, technically don't remember my 21st birthday, if you know what I mean. After that, it really stopped becoming the solution to my problems. 'Cause when I was younger, there was a lot of like bullying and like, self-confidence issues, just self-doubt, and having the substances really put me in a place where I didn't think about it. It was really easy just to skate under the radar, or if something bad happens, just drink the feelings away, and it was just a way just to push it all away and just sit by myself, isolate, and kind of give the world a finger a bit. So
I want to pause you there and touch on a couple of things, but you said that, well, I guess my question for you is, in terms of the drinking itself, did you use it more, like, did you have a friends group that you drank with, or were you, like, when you started drinking and you were utilizing it more as like a social lubricant per se, and it masked a lot of the emotions that you were having and stuff? Did you have like a friends group, or were you always kind of just, stayed off by yourself and drank? How did that develop?
It was always by myself. I don't think I ever had a friends group. Actually, most of my friends all of my friends through high school, they didn't drink at all. They were just straight laced, your average gamer, tabletop gamer kind of thing. I was the only one. We'd go to like the gaming shop and, I'd be like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And then of course I'd run out to my car and then, chug a pint and then a vodka, that is, and then go back to it and be like, hey, yeah, I'm having fun now. But,
and did they know, like, when you were doing that, and did they ever say anything to you or no?
No, they never said anything, but they definitely knew. Cause I remember specific times where, I'd have my backpack with me and, I just kind of like duck behind the table when no one's looking and take a swig, and they're just like right there. And they were kind of the friends that didn't really talk about feelings. They kind of had their own issues in terms of like their upbringing. Because I was from California, Cupertino specifically, all my friends were of Asian descent, so they had pretty strict family lives. Like they all had like these careers they wanted to pursue, but their parents were like, no, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a computer scientist, whatever. And that they kind of used this outlet as an escape themselves.
The gaming?
Yeah. So there's no talk of that, and it was all escapism. In the same way I was escaping with alcohol too.
Did the alcohol, I mean, at some point take precedent over the gaming to where you just stopped? And I asked that because I was a golfer. Growing up, it was I was a golfer and I shot archery a lot. And, it was something that I really thoroughly enjoyed when I was younger. But the more that I drank, the tide kind of turned, and the alcohol all of a sudden was more important than going to practice to shoot or going to play a round of golf with my buddies. I was never like professional golf or anywhere even near that, but we had a group of people that we would always go golfing, and lo and behold, the alcohol took that from me because it was more important. Did you have that with the gaming?
To a degree. I guess it really didn't start becoming like taking precedence until I started like really hitting the bottom, if you will. Because it was one of those things that it was pretty easy to like, go to school, come back, drink, smoke, hop on a game, and then just rinse and repeat for years. But later on, when I guess kind of college ended and life started happening, that's when it really took control, if you will. Just the fact that, everything became more of an effort. It was easier just to go to work, come back, hit up the liquor store, and then just kind of like disappear.
Yeah, let's get into that. So you went to college. What did you study?
I studied entertainment design. So a lot of art, and I dabbled in a couple things like web design and such.
That's perfect for where you grew up. I mean, I feel like that's what a lot of people do there, right?
It's more of like tech industry. So like engineers and like that kind of thing, computer stuff.
And that's something that you're into today, obviously. I mean, we've had conversations, and that's something that you're still into to a certain degree, right?
The art stuff?
The art side of it, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I find myself drawing pretty frequently.
So when you came out of college, I don't know, and this is me just not really knowing, obviously, the industry or anything, the nuts and bolts behind it, but that can seem like a really tough industry to break into. So what was it like when you got out of college? Like, did you have any jobs or job offers that you could have gone right into? Or was it, I'm just speculating, but I would think it was maybe tough to find a job and then drinking picked up? How was that for you?
Pretty much just as you described. getting out of college, having this excitement about it, just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna follow my dream. I'm gonna have this really cool job, get into the movie industry, game industry, you name it, so things like that. But after a little while, the mysticism of it kind of wore off, and then things started becoming more apparent.
How long did that take, not to cut you off, for like the novelty to wear off, until you came to the realization, okay, maybe this isn't going to be my path?
It actually didn't take that long, maybe just a couple months.
Really?
Because obviously I had to fill the gap somehow. So I had to get just your average, grocery clerk kind of job. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's kind of where the alcohol really started to show its ugly head. Because then, like I said before, everything started becoming a chore and just too much work. So it was so much easier just to stop looking for jobs, use try to rationalize it, if you will. Like, oh, I didn't get a job right out the gate, so I'm not good enough. There's always people at school that are better than me, and it was a small school. So I mean, I'm a good artist, but there was a lot of people that's like all they did was art. So they were like really good. So I would compare myself to them and be like, I don't have a chance. This is all I'm going to be able to do is just work these jobs. So I was rationalizing the fact that, oh, I'm just going to do this job, drink every day, and this is just going to be my life because it's not worth it.
That's so common with people that spend so much time drinking. We end up buying into this. It is a lie. We buy into this lie that this is just who we are, and we are okay with it. And I think that is so common amongst people, whether it be alcohol or drugs. We're so empty, and the only thing that seems to give us some little fraction of joy, even though it's not really joy, but it allows us to escape all reality. That's the only thing that we have to hold on to. And so we grasp onto that and just, again, I reference myself a lot, but I was in the same place to where I had just bought in to this idea that I'm going to go work on cars. I'm going to be done. I'm going to go to the bar after. I'm going to go home, rinse and repeat, like what you said. And that's a really, really lonely place to be. Even when and I wasn't an isolated drinker. I spent hours on end at the bar. And so I surrounded myself with people that were also heavy drinkers. And I say heavy drinkers because I'm not going to label anybody an alcoholic, but they probably were, And it kind of helped me in a bad way, because what happened was I was looking at everybody else and saying, well, when I get as bad as that guy, then I'll make a change. Well, I get as bad as that guy, but there's always somebody worse than him. And when I get as bad as that guy, then I'll make a change. But I never made the change until I realized, okay, I need to make a change for myself. So, yeah, that's I wanted to touch on that. Let's get into now, when you started treatment, because you've been to a fair share of them. I do want to touch on, your experiences with that. Talk about the first time you went into treatment, kind of what led you there, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So my first treatment was definitely not by my choice. It was at a point where I was living with my parents, and they were even the worst of my drinking. Because when I was away at college, obviously they just couldn't see it. But when I was living with them, it was like blackout drunk, drinking to, starting fights and things that were just really out of character. So I woke up one day, obviously with the idea of how am I going to get today's drink? Knock on my door. my dad asked me to come down, and I come down, and then of course, typical situation of, intervention. My brother was there, whoever the interventionist was there, and they essentially gave me an ultimatum. They said, you have two options. You're either going to become homeless, we're going to kick you out, or you can go to treatment. And essentially what it was, I made the decision not because I wanted to seek treatment, I just didn't want to be homeless. A lot of because of the stigma, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I agreed to go to LA for a month initially. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna cruise. I'm just gonna do it, and then I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna go right back to it. I'm just gonna drink less this time.
So you knew that before you even went in.
Yeah, I had no intention of stopping.
Yeah.
But with that concern of going down to LA, I was like, okay, so now I'm gonna be flown down to this place, and I'm gonna be like held hostage, if you will. So, once the month rolled around, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go home. Let's keep this going, and everyone at the treatment center was essentially saying, you should probably stay another month. So that's when like I really got like frustrated and angry. And, it was also my first exposure to AA as well, which to a lot of people, and myself included, really felt kind of cult-like because I didn't have an understanding of it. I didn't one, I didn't think I was an alcoholic at the time, but it's just like the saying the Lord's Prayer and all this other kind of stuff, the traditions and everything. It was like, okay, this is making me uncomfortable. So I was just like, no, I'm not AA. This is not me. This is weird. I got to get out of here. So I started faking it and kind of pretending, and then the 2 months ended. I went back to Northern California, stayed in a sober living for 3 months, just biding my time essentially until I figured out how to drink at the sober living, and then worked my way back to my parents' house after I convinced them that I was doing good, and rinse and repeat the cycle. So, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of people's first experience, especially when they walk into AA for the first time, and you hear the Lord's Prayer and you hear all these things. That was my kind of, not my experience. Well, kind of my experience. I grew up Christian. So like the spiritual aspect of it, and we talked about this a little bit a couple days ago, the spiritual aspect wasn't, really hard for me to grasp. I think it was just the idea of being there with a bunch of people. And I don't know, there was just something in the very beginning that this was off. This felt weird, everybody talking about their drinking and everything else. And even for myself, I kind of questioned whether or not I really was a true alcoholic. So yeah, that's a lot of people's first experiences. And so from there you kind of did this a few times.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you like take us on a small little journey through that with the treatments and stuff like that, and kind of how those all played out?
Well, after this first place, which was AA based, I tried to do something different because that obviously didn't work. So I tried a holistic program and I was in that for 3 months. Of course, and then I went to a sober living right after that. That lasted give or take a month. And then they also had like a program where if you relapse within a certain period of time, they have a smaller facility that you can go to up in Tahoe. So I went to that. That was a strict 1 month program, and just it's rinse and repeat. Got out, went back to a sober living. This sober living was one I chose because it seemed sketch. Because I was like, I want to get away with my drinking or smoking weed or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like it was a nut house, to be honest. It was not a good place to be, you know, people stealing from each other, blood on the floors, you name it.
Oh my.
Yeah, not good. So after that, is when I started kind of experiencing the homelessness, getting caught drinking, getting kicked out, sleeping on a bench middle of winter. So it's like freezing, and not the best part of San Jose. So that was an interesting experience. But that led me back to the same place, the same holistic program, because I was under the impression that this is what I wanted, because I'm not spiritual or not religious at all, I should say. So I figured that this was the place for me. I just didn't get it right the first time. So I went back, tried to do some different things, tried smart recovery, and kind of went in with a little bit more intention this time. But it still wasn't enough, because it was more focused on stopping the substance than it was actually changing character or looking at like the internal struggles that I was dealing with. Never really addressed that. That was the kind of thing where it's just I would be in my room at the center and just be doing my own thing, not talking to anyone, and no one came to me and said, "Hey, you doing okay? You're kind of alone a lot. You know, you're not really talking to anyone. You're not really making friends." So that's kind of like the tempo of it, if you will. So that ended, and then of course relapsed right after. Went back to Tahoe, did that, and then coming back to California after that. Or, well, I was still in California, but you know what I mean. Going back home, found another place to live, which was rather nice, expensive though, but I was able to hold on to that for a while, since the owner of the place has a history of alcohol addiction in their family. So they saw it in me, and I guess they gave me a little bit of leeway. But that kind of did more harm than good, because that almost gave me permission to drink. And that went on for multiple years, and only recently in early 22, I went to this place in Southern California, again, Lake Arrowhead, called Serenity Lodge. And that's an all men's program. And it was actually around the time that I was really just done with it. Just this endless cycle of just wake up, go to work, drink, come back, sleep. I wasn't even pursuing the stuff that I like to do. The drinking, like, this is the point where like the drinking really just like took over. I wasn't drawing. I wasn't even playing games. I wasn't hanging out with friends. I had lost the friends I had from high school. So it wasn't, I was just existing. I wasn't pursuing anything. It was just a really sad existence. And after that, you know, that's when I started looking into medication, since I was really against that, you know, once again, because of the stigma that came with it. I'll just, you know, I don't have depression. I just got to stop the drinking, you know. And that was kind of the shift of really when things started to come to light. And that was at the point where I started working on myself, and things started to line up. Like, why was I acting the way that I was, and all this other kind of stuff. But I still had reservations. So I ended up, unfortunately, after that, going to another treatment, you know, to continue treatment, because they only did a month program. So they recommended me to another place in LA that I went to for about a month as well. Got caught drinking, got kicked out, you know, and then, you know, that whole cycle began again, which led me up to this point. But this time at Rock has been completely different, because prior to coming to Rock, my drinking had reached a point that it had never had before. You know, just on and off drinking, you know, drink for a week or two, and probably about, you know, like a liter of vodka to sometimes a handle a day. And then being like hating myself for it, not, wanting to quit, never pick it up again. And then 4 to 5 days later, I'm picking up again. And each time I would try to put it down, I would try to detox on my own, which was, you know, sleepless nights, throwing up every couple hours, hallucinating, thinking people are trying to kill me, seeing crazy stuff. It was just a total mess. Going to the hospital 7 times. It's just really bad.
Wow. I remember your mom talking to her on a few different occasions. I think 2, maybe 3. And it was, you were in the hospital again, and I think what you just shared paints a good picture of we can't give up, and a lot of times people on this podcast or that come onto the podcast, when we're going through these stories and, sharing our experiences, one of the most common things that we see is that for the vast majority, they have somebody in their life that is still willing to stick by them to a certain degree, and not giving up on them. And that, I think, is something that shows here. And on top of that, you didn't give up on yourself. You might have bought in the idea or bought in the lie that this is just how it's going to be, but you didn't give up, and I think that is you've been to multiple treatment centers and had a bunch of different experiences and multiple relapses, but it ultimately led you here. And the one thing that I heard throughout all of that was you weren't fully bought in. Mm-hmm. And that's a common thing and a common saying, and we all know it to a certain degree. It doesn't even involve alcohol per se, but when the pain gets great enough, we will make a change. That can be in alcoholism, that can be in drug addiction, that can be in our health and wellness through nutrition, through exercise. People get diagnosed with heart disease. When the pain gets great enough, we'll make a change. And that's what I heard. Your drinking got to a point where that it was it. There wasn't, and it's a cool, all of our experiences, it's crappy that we have to go through them. But the cool thing is that if we stay sober and we get through the initial, I suppose, shock and awe of everything, we'll look back at everything that we've done and, all the crazy stuff that we've done and the relationships that we destroyed and all of this stuff. We'll look back on it and think, I'm really grateful that all that happened. And that's been my experience. It's been a lot of people's experiences, because had none of this stuff happened, we wouldn't be where we are today, So it was funny. I told you this, that I wanted to bring this up. Tim is somebody that his mom just sent an email to me and really didn't know what to do. She was at this point of like, he's been to multiple treatment centers. I wish I had my phone. I would read the email if I'm sure I still have it. But essentially, in a nutshell, it was, I don't know what to do. She came across the podcast and just listened to Ben and I. And one of the things that she said that she liked about us, Ben and I, which there's multiple things that you could like about us, right, Tim?
I'd say so.
We just shared from our own experiences. Mm-hmm. We didn't really sugarcoat things, And when I got the email from her and we scheduled our first phone call, it was a very, very good conversation with her. But I think what she needed to hear and what she wanted to hear is what I told her. I said, Deneen, there's not much you can do. You can be there when he does want to get the help. But outside of that, you've done everything that, at least from our conversation, you've done everything that I think you can do. And this ultimately has to be a decision that is made by Tim, but supported by you. And, when she started hearing this, I could tell, like, okay, there's something here. And she's like, I'm going to try and get Tim to call you. I'm going to try and get Tim to call you. And I told her, and I tell everybody, I'm more than happy to talk to people, and I gave her she gave you my number. And I remember the phone call, when you called me. I was in Costco parking lot. Many phone calls. I think I'm at Costco so much that the majority of calls that I get for whatever reason, I'm always at Costco. And I heard it in your voice, the gift of desperation. I heard, and I don't even know if you remember the conversation, but you were just in this place of, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Those sorts of things is what I was hearing from you. And I kept saying, Tim, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And called your mom, and we outlined a plan, and here you are. So with all that being said, like I said a minute ago, your mom stuck by you. You stuck by you. Even though you were in this place of you don't know what to do, you didn't give up. And I think that's one of the things that I want you to hold on to, is that even in our most deepest, most heart-wrenching experiences, we're still here, and we still have another opportunity to get the help, and you capitalized on it. So what I want to do now is talk a little bit about kind of what your experience has been up to this point. And are you having a perspective shift? And then I just want to touch on a couple other things of like what we're going to do to move forward, because I see somebody that has a serious opportunity ahead of them, and I obviously want to help you get to your fullest potential in this whole sobriety thing. And I tell parents and loved ones all the time, if somebody is willing to be vulnerable, they're willing to put the work in, and they want to live this sober lifestyle, we're going to stand by them through and through. There's not any situation or scenario that is going to make us ask you to leave. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So as long as the people continue to do the work, and that's not just with you, that's with anybody, so let's go in there. Let's talk a little bit about your perspective shift, kind of, where your head's at now, and, maybe some of the fruits of sobriety and stuff, and your thoughts around the whole process up to this point.
Okay. You want me to start from from when I came to rock initially?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess I would have to say that at least moving from West Coast to East Coast has put me in a place where I can't go to, how you say, it's not like when I get out, I have to pick up the pieces of the shattered life that I was living. There's no pieces to pick up. I have to make those pieces now. So it just feels like there's a whole lot of baggage that has been dropped off, and being here, with just, it just feels like a whole fresh breath of air, just not having to worry about so much of like all the damage I've caused, because I see it around me all the time, where it brought me. And here it's just feels like I'm living a whole new life, essentially. And that really, at least for me, seems to be something that I definitely needed, because I'm one to dwell on the past, to freak out about the future, and just to live in the moment and just day by day. It's at least for me, that's what I needed. And to be getting the support that I am from you and everyone else here has put me in a headspace of just not worried about what's going to happen a year from now, or, it's just like everything is just a gift. Just making these new connections, feeling like I actually can take my life somewhere now, rather than that ball and chain that's been dragging me down, back home. I mean, of course, I'll miss my family, as most people would, but, it's just, it's made me want to live again, essentially. I mean, sure, in the very beginning, it felt like, let's say, like if you're trying to write like an essay or something like that, you look at the blank paper and it seems overwhelming. And I had to deal with those emotions. And I definitely had my ups and downs of just it just seemed like, how am I going to do this? Like, this is too much. I've always had my hand held the entire time back home. And now I actually have to be an adult, which is something I'm not, unfortunately, what I'm not used to. But after a week or two, maybe 3, it's just, I got those few first words down. And once you get those first few words, then everything starts to just flow afterwards. And that's where I feel like I'm at now. I have the idea in my head of like what I want to write next, but I'm not there yet. I'm just focusing on, crossing my T's, dotting my I's, and making sure that there's no, spelling errors. So, I just feel like there's a lot of optimism, more than I have, I think, really ever. Maybe aside from when I was really young and be like, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be famous, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's where I sit right now.
I do want to mention, though, there was one instance when you were here that you were getting the itch to leave.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that and kind of what got you through that.
Well, that a lot of the emotions I was feeling in that situation was from one of the groups that I was in, and it was talking about all the like type of masks that we wear. Pretending to be someone. That's something that I've also really struggled with a lot, was knowing who I actually am. Because of my past experiences, being bullied, being uncomfortable in my own skin, I always try to put on a facade, which led into like codependent issues of trying to be accepted by everyone. And, if just one person out of 100 or something didn't like me, or, didn't give me the time of day, then there's something wrong with me. It was that bad. So it was just so many years of just being fake that I didn't know who I was. And then when the topic of these masks came up, it just got me thinking of like, what if the person I think I am is not the person I actually am? It's just who I want to be, but it isn't true to myself. The analogy came up of like stripping the paint off of an old Victorian house. It's just layers like an onion, but it's to the point where there's no concept of what the original color was. And that just, for someone who just tries to intellectualize everything, really put me in a downward spiral of just like, here I am at treatment again. I haven't succeeded at all, in the past 6 treatments that I've been to. So what's going to make this one different? And, if I'm fighting for myself, but who am I? And it's just like this whole, war zone in my head of conflicting emotions and thoughts and whatever. And it just really dragged me down to the point where I was just like, I almost had an F-it moment of just like, all right, well, I've been homeless before. I know how to do it. So I might as well just be homeless in Florida instead. And, it's just ride it out. And at least my mom won't have to, see me die. But I mean, that's kind of like the dark place that I was in at the time.
Yeah. And I do, again, it's something that a lot of people experience. And I wanted to bring that up because you referenced, I like the old Victorian house reference. That's good. And the layers of the onion. Oftentimes people just assume you just put down the drink and the drug and everything's going to be okay. Well, this here is proof that that is not true. If that was the case, everybody would get sober and that would be that. The good thing is not only with you, but everybody that walks through these doors. That's why we talk about bringing us in this process, allowing us in this process with you. Because the only way that we're going to be able to help you find out who you truly are is by you being open and you being vulnerable and you talking about the things, the struggles that you have, the wins that you've had, and being an open book. Because ultimately, you put some sobriety time under your belt, you continue to be open with the group, with your peers, with your therapist, even with me on this podcast and stuff. These layers of onion just start to peel back on their own. Mm-hmm. And then we get to this point where we're like, this is who I am. I don't have any masks anymore. There's nothing more that I can cover up. I've told my therapist everything. I've shared with my peers everything that you want to, Mm-hmm. Even in the steps of AA, the cultish, that's one of the big parts of AA and having a sponsor is being open, sharing our experiences, talking with people what we're struggling with.
Right.
And those layers just peel off on their own. The Victorian house comes off and ultimately you get down to just the wood siding. Mm-hmm. And the good thing is now you have a blank slate and you can now not put on masks, but build an identity around what you truly want. You know who you are at your core. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the more that we interact with one another, I'm getting to know the real Tim. And you get to build on that, and you get to kind of morph this into what you truly want it to be. And I told you that day that what separates you, because Tim came to us, and this is what separates people like Tim from a lot of people. Tim came to us and said, I'm struggling. And we sat in this office and he was as vulnerable as he could be. And I distinctly remember telling you in that moment, this is what separates you from a lot of people. Because a lot of people would not come forward and say what you said. I'm struggling. I feel like this is all, I'm a fraud. This is all fake, so on and so forth. That was, I think, a pivotal moment for you in this whole treatment process and in your sobriety journey. Because that was you, whether you know it or not, asking for help. And that vulnerability, that level of, this sucks. I don't like this. I don't like how I feel. I feel like I'm a fraud. I want to leave. That's what we need to see from people in order to build from that. So I just want to commend you on that, man, because a lot of people don't do that and they just sit in it and it festers. And then ultimately they get the F-its. I've been homeless before. I can do it again.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to do from here? No intentions on going back to California, or we haven't even crossed that bridge yet. Like, what do you envision if you could look out a year? What's taking place?
I don't see myself really going back to California. I kind of want to leave that chapter behind.
Yeah.
I'll miss my family and stuff, but there was nothing really holding me there aside from family and bad memories. So, it's just, plus with the whole community that I'm trying to get a part of here, like with my sponsor, having the sponsorship family and all of that, and just with the other clients here, just feeling so accepted. I mean, this is the only treatment center that I've been to where I actually came out to everyone about my sexuality. Like that was that's completely new, and it's really given me just a whole lot of more hope. So like, why would I leave all of this behind to go back to some place where I have no connections, and no support system aside from my parents or my mom? And, yeah, it just doesn't seem like at this moment, who knows what the future holds, but at this moment, it doesn't seem like it would be good for my sobriety. 'Cause like a lot of people say, you know, the opposite of addiction is connection. So I want to hold on to those connections and just build on them and start anew is where I'm at right now.
That's awesome, man. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's the story of a lot of people. They come down here with the intention of doing, 60, 90, 120 days of treatment or whatever, and then going back home. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of them have this exact experience. I've connected with people. I've made friends. I like what you said. What do I have back in California other than family, which is important,
Yeah.
but bad memories.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm the same way. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I had all the opportunities to go back to Pennsylvania. But I'm like, for what? I don't have no kids. I didn't have really much of a career. Well, I didn't have one. They fired me, So I viewed it as an opportunity, and here I am, almost 13 years later, kids, career, helping people. And I say all that to say that whatever you want to do, you can do. You can utilize your art too in so many capacities. Like, opportunity is endless here. So as long as you stay sober, which you are,
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you coming on, Tim.
Thank you.
I had fun.
Yeah, this is a new experience for me, so I enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Anything that you want to say, or how you want to wrap up, or I can just close it out?
Well, I'm probably only going to get one opportunity to say this, so hi, Mom.
Yeah, and I know she'll listen to it because she's an avid listener, so.
Yeah, and I haven't told her about it, so she's going to be surprised.
Well, it's coming out this Sunday. So in 3 days.
I'll make sure to call her then and see what she thinks.
Yeah, say, hey, Mom, listen to the newest podcast.
I will,
All
definitely.
Right. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Like I said, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach out to myself, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com, and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.